We in our own lane and we got our own slang. We got our own gang with a literacy gang. We in our own lane and we got our own slang. We do our own thing with a literacy gang. We know our ABCs, we can read a riddle. We about the accent, present participle. Subjects and predicates meeting in the middle. 20 minutes, everything really is that simple. Your brain is a muscle, must keep it trained. We flex different with a literacy gang. Your brain is a muscle, must keep it trained. We flex different with a literacy gang. We in our own lane and we got our own slang. We do our own thing with a literacy gang. We in our own lane and we got our own slang. We do our own thing with a literacy gang.
We in our own lane and we got our own thing. We do our own thing. We're the literacy gang. Hey, how is everybody doing on this Tuesday evening? I hope you all are doing well. All right, y'all see that I have my special co-host with me. He is back. Mr. Jordan is here. We are reunited and it feels so good. How are you doing, Rodney?
I am doing excellent. So glad to be up here with you and watch the great kickoff show last night. So I look forward to us continuing the momentum tonight.
Definitely that. Yeah, last night was wonderful. We had a few little technical glitches, but we moved everything right along. And like you said, it was great. And if you guys are tuned in, then you got to hear our new theme song for season 4. All right. Love that new theme song. Our old one was great. It's still great. It took us through the pandemic. And now we're on this side of it and we're loving this one as well. Here we have our Shania with her good evening. Good evening to her. You guys know, if you've been following us as well, that she had a very, very exciting and emotional time when she saw herself on our billboard for season 4. It was the most lovely reaction. She and her grandmother, oh my goodness. If y'all missed that, then you need to go to the Clever Communities in Action Facebook page or Instagram page and check out the whole thing, as well as Peyton. We saw Peyton's reaction too, and it was just beautiful. We love seeing those beautiful brown faces up there big for everybody to see, representing the Virtual Village family. So, Rodney, what is new? I mean, it's 2021. I haven't seen you since last year.
I know. And even that was a while ago. So some of the same things, we still trying to push through this pandemic, trying to make sure that the children are learning. It was good to hear, that some of the teachers talk about yesterday about the learning that's happening, but we still need a lot more. So trying to make sure people are safe. And then there's a lot going on in the community. So, still out there in the thick of it, trying to make 2021 better than 2020.
I know that's right. Well, look, you're always out there and we're all playing our part, and it's a beautiful thing. Just the collective coming together for our youth and our community at large. But right here with this Virtual Village community, we have a lot in store for you guys tonight. I hope you all are peeping some of the changes that we have, and then some of the things that are familiar that you have grown to know and love. So tonight, be prepared to be affirmed. Be prepared to meet our guest, who is a phenomenal educator, family man, author, a bunch of wonderful things, but you got to tune in to hear it directly from him. He has a new book that he dropped that is super current. It is super relevant, and he's going to read that and talk to us about that. And then, of course, we have our moment in history. Our historic figure for the night, if you've been, paying attention today, is Dr. Carter G. Woodson. So we have some wonderful things in store with that. Rodney and I will be reading about Dr. Carter G. Woodson and get into one of our exciting, y'all know how we do. Y'all know how we do when we get our little thing going. So that's going to be really, really fun. A lot to learn about there. A lot of ways to digest the information that we learn. So this is family programming. So whether you're a grandma, granddad, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, and if you are in 12th grade all the way down to K, All right, this is for everybody. It's a family affair, okay? But with that said, we are going to move right on to that. Y'all know what it is. It's affirmation time.
Greetings, virtual villagers. My name is Shania, and do you know what time it is? It's affirmation time! Time to remind ourselves how great we are. So everybody, repeat after me. I am smart. I have purpose. I am confident. I am valuable. My voice is worthy of being heard. I am an asset to my family, school, and community. I respect myself and I respect others. I am beautifully made inside and out. I love my beautiful hair and I love my beautiful brown skin. I am more than enough. Great job, virtual villagers. Can I get a virtual high five? Great job. And always remember how fantastic you are.
Virtual villagers, it's Kalia. I'm back, and you know what I'm here for. This is today's moment in history. Carter G. Woodson. Regarded as the father of Black American history, Carter G. Woodson was a prolific historian, author, journalist, and jolly, or greener. With having published over 30-plus books, Woodson is known for The Miseducation of the Negro that was published in 1933 and discusses how Black people were miseducated to believe the lies society propagated about themselves in order to stifle their greatness. Furthermore, Woodson is the mastermind behind Negro History Week that began in 1926 during the second week of February to celebrate the achievements of Black history. Negro History Week was then developed into Black History Month in 1976. Woodson understood that a firm understanding of historical events and actions would give Black people the ability to learn from our mishaps and achievements, which is why in 1915 he founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History that is still present today and has its headquarters in Washington, D.C.
The Virtual Village Show is back with Season 4, starting February 1st every Monday through Wednesday. The Virtual Village is ready to inspire all ages. Our industry-leading teachers are here to reinforce foundational literacy skills, provide culturally affirming literature, and we have exciting Black History facts for the entire family. Log on today at clevercommunities.org or visit our social media pages.
After the holidays are over, most Americans prepare for taxes. Titan Tax is ready to make filing your taxes as stress-free as possible. This veteran-owned virtual tax office will prepare and submit your tax return safely from the comfort of your home. If you filed unemployment for the first time or wondering about home office tax deductions, Titan Tax Professional has the answer for you. Contact us today at TitanTax.com or 757-565-7781. Titan Tax, real help from real people.
All right. So are you all feeling affirmed? Are you, Rodney?
Absolutely. Always.
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 Shania brings it. She delivers with that, and it never gets old. Every time y'all can't see us backstage, but we are always repeating after her and doing everything she says, and it makes us feel wonderful. And we hope that feeling permeates over to you all, our virtual village viewers and your families as well. Such a powerful thing to see a beautiful brown face saying such wonderful, powerful words. So I hope you guys again are all soaking that in. And then Kalia comes through this season with the moment in history, and she is and shout out to Kalia and her mother. Kalia's mother, Latanya, is the one responsible for our new theme song. Her mother and their little cousin. And then as well, Kalia just moved into she is at Clark Atlanta. So she just recently moved in down there, and we are so proud of her. Glad that she's able to be down there and get that college life started. So everybody send her some love, send those well wishes, positive energy, positive vibes her way. And we know that she's going to do great things. Yes. And then we also had some greetings from Miss Amanda Gaynor. She said, good evening. Good to see her. And then Miss Lakeisha said that she is reading. I know what you are reading right now, Dr. Carter G. Woodson's The Miseducation of the Negro. So yes, we got to talk about that, sis. We got to talk about that after you get done. So, it's only right. It's the second day of Black History Month, and I didn't run it yesterday. I wanted to wait till you were here so that you and I would have Carter G. Woodson on this day. So we will get into that a little further down the line because, again, Rodney and I, we're going to do our thing. But before we get into that, we want to introduce our community connector for the night. We have our guest up first, and we're excited to have him. He's no stranger to the Virtual Village family, and he has been here. He's been here before we were doing virtual programming, but also he's been here when Rodney and I first started, and we were going twice a day, and Rodney in the beginning, in the very beginning, and then he's been on multiple times with his children, and that was lovely. When his daughter and son, Malia and Mason, were up there in his lap. So he's no stranger, and we are glad. Wait a minute, let me acknowledge Dr. Mom. How are you doing? So glad to see you. Good evening to you. And with that said, we are going to bring on our community connector, our esteemed guest for the night. That is the one, the only Dr. Kenneth Vaughan. Bring him out, bring him out. Hey there.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing?
All right, good to see you.
Good to see y'all.
Great seeing you. How are you doing this evening?
I am tired, but I'm here. If that makes any sense, I'm excited.
Good. We are glad that you are here. I understand being tired. It's a lot going on these days, but we are glad that you are here with us. What does your sweatshirt say?
So this the shirt that says "There's a King in You." It's just a positive affirmation that we give, especially for our kids. So all of them have their own shirts. Like Malia has that "There's a Queen in Me." Mason has that "There's a King in Me," and my wife wears that "There's a Queen in You" as it relates to helping them recognize the nobility and the stature and the royalty that's within them.
I love it. And I may have seen that sweatshirt somewhere else. I may have seen those somewhere else. We're going to get into that. But before you start reading for us and telling us about your book, give us a little bit of background about yourself. You're an educator, right?
Yeah. So I've been in education. I think this is my 21st year. I've held a whole lot of different roles. Been assistant principal for a number of years. A math coach or instructional coach for about 13 years. Right now, I'm working with school as it relates to behavior. So I function as a behavior specialist. But I think the key thing for me is really what is my role in serving the community and then cultivating the images and expectations for our young men and for our young women that I also have to kind of father on or love on as it relates to what is the expectation as they grow into their crown. So I'm always excited to do what I can for our people.
So how do the children, with your approach of affirming our students, our young people in that way, what kind of response do you get from them? Are they shocked? Are they, sometimes, reluctant because maybe they haven't received that before, or are they gravitating to it right away?
So it really just depends. So a whole lot of times, of course, they like, because they don't know you, they're like, what is he talking about? But as you get ready to build relationships, and as I'm serving them, they kind of understand. Look, this is how I am all day long. I'm a father, so I try to go through and commit to being a father figure to kids, so they just know, right? We talk about execution and excellence, right? So you have to execute. When you say you're gonna execute, and you need to walk in excellence. And when you slip or when you falling, we're gonna pick you up. But you have the expectation of going after what you said you want to do and being who you can be. So I think it's a journey, but I do the same thing for my kids, right? Nobody walks into this particular space perfect. They have to continually be molded and guided. So
So,
Excellent.
so you're in or serving in two of the most in-demand professions in public education, behavior specialist, and also having that math specialist background.
yeah.
So from your role, from the work that you do, the belief system that you have, the way you serve your children, what are you seeing? Because I think that what you and some others have pioneered in terms of how you pay attention to the cultural backgrounds of our children, and wrapping that love around and being that positive reinforcement. So there seems to be some movement around the country finally,
Yeah.
recognizing the importance of that. What's your take on that? Do you see it that way, that the world is finally catching up to you, or what's your sense of what's happening out there?
I think it's smaller pockets where people go through and they value relationships, and I think that's one of the big things that we try to do as our team from the leader on. Everybody is about how we connecting to kids and families in this virtual space and closing that gap. So we're dropping off laptops. We're going by and having tough conversation with moms and dads about how do you help your kid be accountable, setting alarms on their phone, scheduling days where they check the students' grades, because in this virtual space, we cannot be successful in a silo. So we just had a meeting today, talk to the mom, talk to the student. Everybody had a responsibility in the process, right? Talk to mom. Did you set your calendar? I'll be checking with you on Friday. Um, because I think that we're stronger together. So I have seen a whole lot of educators do it. What I do think is that we can't allow the virtual distance to disconnect us. So how do we focus on the main priority, which is developing kids? You can teach content all you want, but we're not teaching content just to teach content. We're teaching content to create different opportunities for students. So how do you put that as a priority rather than saying, that I teach standard 22, 44, 56, 37, and this particular standard? So it's really about reprioritizing, figuring out what is the most important thing you want students to do, and then developing that relationship so he or she is willing to go that extra mile, because this virtual place is not easy for adults, nor is it easy for kids.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I deal with it every day. I'm a school board member. I hear from students all the time that are challenging. I hear from parents call me crying, trying to figure out. They're seeing so much stress in the children, or just trying to figure out in their own world. If they're especially working mothers, I think they
Hmm.
are catching it more than anybody, trying to figure out this dynamic of playing this at-home teacher and coach, and also trying to go out there and do the work and make the living for the family that they do. So, hearing you talk about the relationships and the support that you give parents, I just think that makes all the difference in the world.
I think one of the things that we have to go back to, that there's an old adage that say it takes a village to raise a child. Um, so we can't get caught up in our positions in the village just because my child is well, that I'm not really worried about the other kids in the village. Because I think from a community standpoint, there's some things that the churches can do. I think there's some things that the mosque can do. I think there's some things that educators can do as it relates to reaching out to more families, figuring out how do I still go through and connect. Um, because the way it's going right now, depending on where you are in your social economic status, our kids are falling further behind, right? Because of economic disadvantages and because of connection opportunities lost. So, I mean, we talk to our team all the time. How are we connected? We can't allow this virtual gap to keep us from trying to bond with our kids. So,
Yeah, because the reality of it is that the inequities and disparities that we have highlighted now in the pandemic, they existed before the pandemic,
mm-hmm.
and in many cases, they have been institutional for decades.
Yep.
So if anything comes out of this, hopefully now we are recognizing, as you described, how we all are connected, and if we're serious about the work moving forward, we need to also uproot these systemic inequities that cause the problem to begin with, and that the pandemic is heightened. And we need to be able to have courageous conversations about it.
You're right about that.
Definitely. So you both said a mouthful there, and what you all are doing again is so important, Dr. Vaughan, in the school and in the community, and Rodney on the school board and within the community. And as you all have said, it definitely takes a village. And I think these conversations are so important because it helps people to see the village in action, because all these things don't always get articles. It's not something that is salacious or negative that gets thrown out there, or even all the positive work doesn't get put out like that. So I'm glad that we're able to highlight these conversations so people can see, so people can understand that just because we don't see it plastered everywhere, it doesn't mean that it's not happening and that it hasn't been happening. And I'm with you, Rodney. Let's uproot this. Like, it's the spotlight is on it. We know that it's already been there, but there's no excuse right now. There are no excuses. And I see we have Brother Patrick here, another literacy advocate, a friend of mine who is doing great work out there in Texas, making sure, and has been all around the country, making sure that our children, our Black children, are literate and that they enjoy reading. So we got the whole gang in here. He's no stranger to this program, to the Virtual Village family as well. He's been up here. So loving seeing all this positive energy tuning in. And make sure you guys do us a favor and click that share button. So right now we're going to get into this new book that you have. Now, you've only written about 1,000 books. Okay, so we got 1,001. And can you hold this book up for us while we'll simultaneously hold this book up? And tell us, let me tell you first, I've read it. I love it. It's extremely timely. Everybody, you need to get your copy, but we'll get into all of that. Tell us about this book.
So I wrote the book really to just go through and unpack some of the challenges and some of the opportunities I experienced as a parent, right? Because when my kids were going through virtual learning and dealing with the pandemic and dealing with social injustice at the same time, I wanted to figure out how could I write a book that kind of gave you a window into some of the things that the parents are experiencing, but also to provide hope as it relates to connecting. And the other thing is just a hidden message about how do we connect to our identity outside of the context of the slave narrative that we always have about who we are. So the subdrop of The Rise of the Orisha is really just about the hidden superpower that is within all of us if we choose to connect to it.
So that's awesome, and we're gonna let you read. But I do want to say this: you hit on all things that I think when it comes to our children's books, we want the representation, the beautiful brown skin, and the affirmation of how we look, how we talk, how we dress, who we are. And then we also want to know about our history and culture and current things. But then I think it's important to have to spark imagination, and for a child to be able to be like, oh, I'm flying, or I'm imagining this, or I'm traveling here in my mind, or I'm actually traveling and doing these things. And I think all of those are important. We don't want to bombard our children with just one. It's all of those, like Black representation in children's books and all those aspects. And I think you hit them all here. I think you hit every last one of those in here, because those are my points that I'm always looking at as an African-American children's book enthusiast, fanatic, I'd say connoisseur, all of these different things. So look, we're going to step away and let you read the book, all right? So you guys, listen, pull up. If you got some popcorn, make sure you got your little ones cuddled up next to you, your big ones cuddled up next to you. This is a wonderful read by a fantastic brother. So let's let Dr. Vaughan do his thing.
All right, so I'm reading the new book. Is called Somebody Come Get These Kids, The Rise of the Orishas. Definitely written by myself, Dr. Kenneth Vaughan, and illustrated by my brother, Cameron Wilson. So if you're looking for an amazing illustrator, I would say reach out to Cameron Wilson. So I'm going to get started. Everywhere you look, there was news of this deadly new virus that was making people sick and sometimes killing people. At first, many of us halfway paid attention to the news because the COVID-19 virus hadn't really hit us hard in the United States. That was until the COVID-19 storm came and surged throughout America. Many cities like New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. were hit worse. As the news of the deadly virus spread, airports, malls, hospitals, and large gathering locations began to slowly close. People across the nation bombarded their local grocery stores, stocking up on supplies such as water, Lysol, and yes, the infamous toilet tissue. They stocked up on toilet tissue and Lysol. To have stocked up on toilet tissue and Lysol was equivalent of striking gold. Many people feared for the worst as the world sat back and waited as the coronavirus had its way with our lives. While in the staff meeting, Dr. Vaughan listened as his principal, Mr. Sanders, communicated his school's closing plan. Like many schools in urban areas, Dr. Vaughan's students and their families struggled to deal with the drastic changes caused by the COVID-19. Mr. Sanders and the school leaders across the nation tried to provide their students with laptops and hotspots to ensure that the students were able to learn during the pandemic. Many school districts also passed out weekly meals to students. Students received breakfast and lunch for each week they were away from school. Teachers across the nation explored the new reality of virtual learning. Parents were tasked with helping their kids log on to their classes while still trying to take care of their duties at work. In many cases, families struggled to maintain virtual school responsibilities while dealing with the stress of life. Something had to give. Despite everyone's best intention to find a way to get back to normal, nothing changed. And in many cases, things became worse. News began to spread of teachers and bus drivers contracting the virus, which caused almost all the schools to close. While driving home from school, Dr. Vaughan stopped by the local grocery store to pick up some additional items. In the event things became worse because of the coronavirus, the line in the store was extremely long. It seemed like everyone and their mother was in the grocery store at one time. People walked down the aisles, filling their shopping carts to the point of some items falling off to the side. While walking down the aisles, Dr. Vaughan noticed that everyone seemed to have multiple stacks of toilet paper and Lysol. He slowly gathered items just in case he had to stay home for an extended period of time. As he drove home, it seemed like people were also stocking up on more than just groceries. Let's see if you can see that. Despite not being physically in school, many educators were still required to teach students virtually during the pandemic. This virtual learning was challenging for many educators and students because they were used to face-to-face instruction, and many people struggled with logging into Zoom, Google Classroom, and Microsoft Teams. The struggle was real for Dr. Vaughan. Each morning, he woke up early to go run and work out because his wife headed off to work at the hospital. Before his wife headed off to work at the hospital. He knew that if he wanted to get any me time in before the kids woke up for school, he needed to work out early in the morning. His wife worried for him every time he went out for his early morning run because of what happened to Ahmaud Arbery and the increased violence reported on the news. While they lived in a good neighborhood, she didn't trust how people may perceive him running at the early hours before dawn. Despite her objections and fears, Dr. Vaughan still ran a few miles each morning. When he returned from running and working out, his wife would also go on a morning walk. Dr. Vaughan and his wife took turns making the kids breakfast. Secretly, the kids preferred eating the breakfast their mom made because she did fancy things like bagels, omelets, and cornmeal porridge. Their dad, Dr. Vaughan, on the other hand, would only pour cereal in the bowl, or every blue moon would make his famous pancakes. Once the kids were up, everything seemed to move at a hectic pace. Between the kids eating breakfast and putting on their clothes for the day, there's very little time to prepare for the early morning instructional meetings. Due to virtual learning, each day seemed to drag. Dr. Vaughan and his early morning meetings were often interrupted by the sound of his son and his daughter chasing each other upstairs. His daughter Malia, who happened to be 3 years old, refused to allow her brother's virtual learning classes or her father's virtual learning instruction meetings to keep her from having fun. She interrupted countless meetings by sitting on her father's lap, saying hi to district and local leaders as they discussed the challenges of digital learning. Most of the people just smiled and commented on how cute Malia was after her brief interruption, because most people were trapped at home themselves. Needless to say, that Malia and Mason were not the only kids who hijacked virtual meetings during the pandemic. After a few months, most parents and students just wanted the kids to go back to school. The stress of virtual learning seemed too much at times for the whole family. While it seemed like fun at first, it became very challenging because it seemed like Mason was on virtual classes all day. Whenever he seemed to get a break in his class, his sister Malia would run into his room and try to get on his computer. This often caused many smaller arguments between Mason and Malia. Mason would yell, "Malia, get off my computer. Go play in your own room." Malia would reply, "Mason, you're rude. When I get some candy, you're not getting any, and I'm going to tell Daddy on you." A few minutes later, both of them would run downstairs, interrupting their father's meeting to tell on each other. As always, Dr. Vaughan muted his mic and stepped away from his meeting to calm down his restless children. He often dreamed of getting away just for a few days to be on a no-kid zone island. One day, while looking at the coat closet for some toys to play with, Malia went through some bags and found souvenirs from their trip to Jamaica. As they were going through the bag, her dad called her over to him to show what she was going through. As Dr. Vaughan looked through the bag, he picked out necklaces, lion art, and bracelets. He began to reminisce about how much fun they had while visiting family in Jamaica. While on the family excursion, they visited Dunn's Rivers Falls. As they were leaving, they purchased several items at the souvenir shops. Right before the family left the park, an older woman called the family over. "Family, come and see what items I have just for you." As the family walked over, Malia ran over to the older woman and hugged her, asking her if she could play with some of the items being sold. The older woman smiled and allowed Malia to touch the various items. The older woman smiled as she watched Mason and Malia play with the items. She explained to Dr. Vaughan and his wife, "I have been waiting for you a long time. Your children have the spirits of wind and fire. Embrace their gifts and protect them." Both Dr. Vaughan and his wife smiled, not fully understanding what the woman meant by fire and wind. As they left, the old woman gave them each certain items. The kids received beaded bracelets. The mother received a bracelet, and the father was given a small wooden sword that looked like a letter opener. After getting permission from her dad, Malia went upstairs to play with her new bracelet from the bag. Malia smiled as she sat at her table and rubbed her beautiful necklace. As she rubbed, magical dust filled her room. Moments later, she was floating in the air in her room as she looked down on her toys. From the magical dust appeared the Orisha Oya. Oya controls both the wind and storms. Oya whispered to Malia as they both floated around Malia's room. "Hello, my child. I've been waiting for you to summon me." Oya told Malia stories of the past and about the magical powers she would soon possess. While leaving his room on break, While leaving his room on a break from class, Mason walked over to Malia's room to check on her because normally by now she would have snuck into his room to try to bother him or say hello to his class. Mason stared in amazement as he watched his sister and Oya float in the air while they played with Malia's dolls. Malia yelled in shock as she saw Mason staring at her. This is the most beautiful picture. I want to make sure we get that right so you can see it. As soon as Malia yelled, Mason tried to keep her quiet so that Dad would not find out. After hearing the commotion, their dad asked, "Was everything okay upstairs?" Malia and Mason laughed and said yes. Mason was somewhat still in shock after seeing his sister levitate in the air with this strange mystical woman. Both Malia and Oya lowered themselves down to the ground. Mason asked what seemed to be 1,000 questions about how Malia received her powers and how he could get powers of his own. Oya explained that they were connected to the powerful ancestral spirits called the Orishas that guide and protect the children of the sun. Elders who still believe in our ancestral spirits pass on that connection to people who possess a spirit deep within. After the long talk, Mason was given his own ancestral necklace to use to reveal his ancestral spirit. Mason slowly placed the necklace around his neck, anticipating what would happen next. As he tried on the necklace, magical dust filled the room. Shango appeared with fire and lightning surrounding him. Shango has the power to control fire, lightning, thunder, and war. He was known for his love of the drum, music, and dancing. Mason and Malia stood in amazement as he took his place beside Shango. The room was filled with the sounds of ancient African drums. Shango also told stories of the past. Shango also told Mason stories of the past and explained to him his new powers. Explained to him the new powers he would have and his responsibility to protect his people. During the conversation, Shango explained to Mason, like many of his family members before him, explained that Mason, like many of his family members before him, were all connected to the ancestral spirits of the past. Mason also learned that his grandfather, who had passed away, was also filled with the spirit of Shango. As he talked, Mason learned that many of the people lost their connection with the spirits because they no longer loved each other and didn't embrace Africa and the spirit of the drum. I want to make sure you can see Shango. Daily, Malia and Mason would practice their powers with Oya and Shango as their father attended his virtual meetings. They laughed and played behind their parents' back as Malia lifted various objects around the house, and Mason used his power of lightning speed to swiftly go upstairs to get things from his room or hide the candy he snuck from the kitchen cupboard. As they did every day, both Malia and Mason competed by racing up the stairs and jumping over obstacles they created in the hallways. As they raced, Malia would swiftly levitate up the stairs, only to find that Mason used his lightning speed to zoom past her up the stairs. Each time, Malia would yell, "Daddy, Mason's cheating." Oh, I'm sorry. Each day, both Mason and Malia grew stronger in their abilities of controlling the elements such as wind, storms, lightning, fire, and thunder. Malia and Mason agreed to keep their powers secret from their parents because they were worried about their mom and dad. They were worried their mom and dad may not allow them to use their new superpowers. One day, while both Malia and Mason were using their powers to challenge each other in Mason's room, the dad appeared at the door. He stared in amazement as he watched Malia use her powers to levitate in the air as she threw toys at her brother. Mason moved, like lightning across the room to dodge the toys thrown at him. After a few minutes, the dad burst into the room saying, I knew something was strange. I knew something strange was going on with both of you because you've been too quiet lately. Both of you think you're slick. Mason and Malia laughed a little, thinking they should have been more careful with their powers. After seeing all their powers at work, the dad explained, Mason, Malia, Oya, and Shango, all y'all better make sure this room is clean before mom comes home. Come home from the hospital if y'all don't want to be on punishment. Oya and Shango whispered underneath their breath as they helped the kids clean. Who does he think he is? Does he not know who we are? Maybe we should get him. Despite the dad's best attempt to keep his kids' new powers under control, Malia still interrupts his daily instructional meetings, hovering above, asking for snacks or telling on her brother before sneaking candy and snacks in his room. Each day, after Mason finished all his virtual lessons, their dad, Dr. Vaughan, would let them go outside and practice their powers. He often reminded them whatever they mess up, they would also have to clean up. Thankfully, Oya and Shango agreed to help and slowly agreed to appreciate Dr. Vaughn's love for his kids and their people. One early Saturday morning, both Malia and Mason quickly snuck downstairs to try to get some snacks before their parents woke up. As they walked towards the kitchen, they noticed their mom in some strange ancestral spirit. Both Malia and Mason watched with amazement as their mom and the spirit worked together to make breakfast and their mom's amazing porridge. After a few moments, Mason yelled, "What? Does everybody in this house have superpowers?" His mom and Arisha Oshun, the spirit of love and protection, turned around and winked at them both. Mason wondered to himself what power his older sister Michaela had. To be continued. So the last thing is just some pictures of some other amazing books that we wrote, which most people enjoy. So
all right. Well, that was wonderful. We definitely enjoyed that. I told everybody that they were in for a treat, and now they see why. Again, this book is extremely it's right on time. I mean, you had to put that out there real fast. Like y'all moved quickly and got this out in the thick of it, and it's really great. I definitely enjoyed that story, and like I said, there is the cultural aspect, there is the social aspect, the affirmation. Oh, we got Daryl in the house, another one of our literacy gang authors here, a young Black man. So we are glad to see that he is tuning in. CTAC represent. And then we have Miss Portia. Shout out to Miss Portia again. She and Miss Peyton, thank you for sharing that experience that you all had seeing the billboard. And you guys are going to see Peyton on the show in a little bit, okay? So don't go anywhere. But she said, beautiful. What a wonderful read. Very needed and extremely timely. Agreed. Then we have Brother Abdul saying that he needed to get that for his grandchildren. And then we had a connection here. Some networking going on, some Black folks networking. Brother Patrick said, please reach out to me. Would like to do you to Zoom. Well, I'm telling you, would like for you to Zoom with you for Chicago Literary Project. Okay, so again, this is the literacy advocate right here, definitely, and the literacy agent. So definitely want to holler at Brother Patrick. So we love this. This was great. Thank you so much for coming on and reading this book for us and putting this out here during this time when it's extremely needed. It's relatable for parents. It's relatable for children. It's relatable for educators. It's just a win-win-win all around. Rodney, was there anything that you wanted to say to Dr. Vaughan before he leaves us?
I mean, I agree with you. I'm just the mere fact that you find the time and the will and the passion to write it in the midst of all that you even described that you were dealing with in the book is just admirable, and I'm proud to know you, and so happy that you did that. I mean, seriously, I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of children, a lot of families out there that need this book. And I think that you have put something out there that is truly going to help families in a lot of ways. I mean, we know what we're talking about in terms of literacy is liberation and the virtual village and culturally affirming, but really getting to the emotions and the challenges and how you overcome and how a family can get through something like this together. I think it's perfect, and it fits with the Black History Month theme that's all about Black families. So thank you for doing that and sharing that this evening.
Man, I appreciate it. I think one of the stories that says, "Until the lion tells the story, the hunt will always glorify the hunter." Right.
That's right.
So I would say to my other writers out there, or people who have a story within them, right, we have a responsibility to pick up the pen and write our own stories. And until you write your own story, make sure that you are reading stories that affirm you. Right. We have I think that's the responsibility of both parents and students, right? If we're very mindful that our children reflect how we perceive the world, both our limitations and our opportunities, right? So sometimes we got to read our own stories to kind of boost ourselves up, so that our kids don't fall victim to the shackles that we were shackled to. So I'm always thinking about, hey, how can I tell a new story for us of our greatness, of the opportunities that we have despite the obstacles? So somebody greater than me did it before me, and I just want to kind of walk in that legacy until the next young writer comes up, right? And then I'll put down my pen and let them get ready to go through and script the next narrative for the future.
Well, we definitely appreciate all your efforts, and we, all around. And as far as your books, Girls Can Do Anything, When Daddy Comes Home, all of these are Clever
Kissed by the
Communities in
Sun.
Action favorites. Huh?
Kissed by the Sun.
Kissed by the, you know it. We got that on video. You have changed some lives with that. I don't know if you saw Rodney, but over at Ingleside, we had a very tender moment with Kissed by the Sun, one of our youth over there. So yeah. So definitely check out Dr. Kenneth Vaughan on Amazon. And before you leave, are there any, tell people where they can find you.
So if you want to find me, I think the best way to do it is we do like daily affirmation, especially for our brothers and our sisters, and especially for young queens. If they're on king or queens, if they're on Instagram, they can follow me at Lions Arise. You get to hear the daily message. We do affirmations. We're talking about being in the gym and solidifying yourself, and some of the things that I do to kind of sharpen my mind. I'll probably be going over something really soon about what we can do to kind of help people who want to be authors. So I'll do that opportunity in February. It'll be free. After that, it won't. So I'll touch base with y'all and look and see how we can connect on that. Because I do believe there's power in the tongue, but there's also power in the pen.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being our first community guest during Black History Month. It was wonderful having you. Always a pleasure. Be sure to hug those beautiful babies for us and tell your wife, your lovely wife, we said hello. And we look forward to having you up here again. All right. And make sure you go and grab that comment from Patrick. Okay.
I think I got it. I screenshot it.
All right. Wonderful. Well, you have a good evening and keep up the great work.
All right. See y'all later. Bye.
Bye. All right, now that was wonderful. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know that you did. The art of storytelling is really wonderful and it's important, and it needs to be something that is not forgotten. So we are going to go right into our next segment. We were just speaking of Peyton, and we are about to see Peyton bring us a quote from Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and then Rodney and I are about to get into our thing. So y'all stay tuned.
Greetings, virtual villagers. I am Peyton, and today's quote is by Carter G. Woodson. As well said to handicap a student by teaching him that his black face is a curse, and that his struggle to change his condition is hopeless. It's the worst sort of lynching.
So that was a very powerful quote there. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson is full of them.
Yes.
He did not hold any punches when he came to telling Black folks what we needed to know and the world at large. So Rodney, we don't have that much time, but we're gonna get through this. And our Tuesdays are a little longer to our our virtual villagers. Now our Tuesdays are gonna be a little longer, but y'all stay here with us because we're gonna have a wonderful time going through this book right here. And Rodney and I are going to read Carter Reads the Newspaper. And this is about the young Carter G. Woodson. And so we're going to alternate. We have to do the father of Black History Month, Black History Week, which became Black History Month. And have our little debate too about that, because I see all these posts on Black History. We will get that information to Miss LaRonda. But I see all of this talk when February comes around, my birth month, and people are like, I don't do Black History Month. I don't like it. I do Black History all year long. And to me, it's analogous to a birthday. We celebrate our lives and the lives of our loved ones all year round. Those lives matter to us. We're glad that we are here and that they exist on this earth. But on the birthday, it is that time where everybody collectively turns up to celebrate that person. You may individually tell your loved ones, I love you, and show affection all day, every day. But everybody gets together to do it. And that's what Black History Month is. It does not mean that you get an off day in any of the other months, but this is just the time, where everybody collectively comes together to acknowledge the work that we do throughout the year, hopefully. So, boom, let's get it. Carter Reads the Newspaper. I like when Rodney and I do this little tandem read here. So I'm going to kick this one off, all right, y'all? Are y'all ready? Ready, set, go. All right. Okay, yeah, I'll read it. You'll hold it up. That makes more sense. All right. Each February, we celebrate Black History Month. It's a time to honor heroes like Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King Jr. But there's one hero we sometimes forget. Carter G. Woodson didn't help people escape from slavery, start a bus strike, or lead a movement of millions. Yet without him, we might not have Black History Month. This is his story.
Carter was born on a small farm in Virginia in 1875, 10 years after the end of the Civil War. Carter's parents, James Henry and Ann Eliza, were born into slavery, and Carter grew up hearing about their lives. Their stories they told weren't part of any history book, but Carter kept them in his heart. James Henry had run away from his master to join the Union Army and fight for freedom. Times were hard, though. After the war, James Henry worked on the railroad, saving enough to buy a few acres of worn-out land. Most years, the crop brought in $100 or less.
Ann Eliza was unbelievably brave. When she was a girl, her master decided to sell her mother. Ann Eliza asked him to sell her instead. That way, her mother wouldn't have to leave her other 5 children. But no one offered enough money for Ann Eliza, so her master sold her mother and 2 little brothers instead. Ann Eliza didn't see them again until after the Civil War. She never forgot the horror of standing on the auction block. Trauma. Carter's parents struggled to feed and clothe 7 children, especially in winter and early spring. Food was scarce. Carter, the youngest, once said, "We would leave the table hungry to go to the woods and pluck the persimmons." I never said that right. Many times he had to jump into bed early on Saturday nights so his mother could wash his only pants and shirts for the next day.
Carter could only attend school 4 months each year. The rest of the time, he was needed to work on the farm. Learning didn't happen just at school. James Henry taught his children to stand up for themselves and to take pride in who they were. He gave Carter the courage to look anyone in the eye and declare, "I am your equal." And though Carter's father couldn't read or write, he believed in being an informed citizen. So he asked Carter to read the newspaper to him. But newspapers weren't easy to come by. Sometimes Carter read from old ones that had been used to wrap up food or packages. Reading the newspaper gave Carter his first glimpse of the wider world.
Carter longed to go to high school, but his family needed him to earn money. When he was 15, he hired himself out to nearby farms, working long hours under the hot sun. He also drove a garbage wagon. High school would have to wait.
Carter's older brother, Robert, found good paying work in the coal mines of West Virginia. Carter decided to join him there. Mining was grueling work for a boy not yet 17. It was dangerous. Once, a piece of slate came crashing down on Carter's head. He never forgot his time in the mines. Years later, Carter said, "I am a coal miner and I can take anything."
You know, that part is interesting, all of this, because you've heard when people say we are not our ancestors, that weirdness. You're definitely not. So in this harsh place, Carter met a man named Oliver Jones. You have to look hard to find Oliver's name in a history book. But in that small mining camp in Fayette County, West Virginia, Oliver did something important. He changed one life, and that life changed many. Like Carter's father, Oliver was a Civil War veteran who believed in education. As a soldier who had been at the Battle of Appomattox on the final day of the Civil War, Oliver had fought for freedom and equality. He was still willing to do his part to further the cause, said Carter.
Each evening after working in the mines, Oliver threw open the doors of his little house to the other miners. He made his home a reading room, filling it with books by African-American writers and with newspapers from all over the country. He sold ice cream and fruits, and all at prices the men could afford. At first, Carter just went for the food, but that changed. Carter said, "When Oliver Jones learned that I could read, he soon engaged me to inform him and his friends as to what was in the daily newspapers." Carter was happy to oblige. He liked reading the newspaper. Besides, he said later, "I always enjoyed nice things to eat." Carter admired Oliver. He was a well-educated man, but he could neither read nor write, said Carter. He learned through others. Carter began to learn the same way.
Carter had longed for school. Life at Oliver's tea room turned out to be school of a different kind. Whenever Oliver and the other miners had questions about something Carter read in the newspaper, it was Carter's job to research the answers. If the Civil War veteran was in the news, Oliver wanted to know all about the man. I had to look him up in the books, inform my friends as to what battles he had fought, said Carter. If there was a question about economics, politics, or a new law, it was up to Carter to find out all about it in the newspaper and explain it to his friends. Carter was inspired by Oliver and this circle of men committed to freedom, equality, and knowledge. Men whose own life stories would never be in history books. And so the seeds of Carter's own life work began to grow. My interest in penetrating the past of my people was deepened.
Carter worked in mines for 3 years. When he was 20, he moved home to Virginia to start high school. He finished in just 2 years. Carter went on to college and became a teacher. He continued to study and work, earning a master's degree when he was 33. Then when Carter was 37, he earned a PhD in history from Harvard University, the second African-American to do so, with W.E.B. Du Bois was the first. Carter was the first and only Black American whose parents had been slaves to receive a doctorate in history. Let me say that one more time. Carter was the first and only Black American whose parents had been slaves to receive a doctorate in history.
At Harvard, so the story goes, one of Carter's professors said that Black people had no history. Carter remembered his father's pride, his mother's courage, and Oliver's determination to learn. He remembered reading the newspaper. Carter spoke up. No people lack the history, he said. The professor challenged Carter to prove him wrong. For the rest of his life, Carter did just that.
In 1926, he established Negro History Week. Later, it became Black History Month. Carter chose the second week of February to mark the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Today, our nation celebrates Black History Month, and we honor Dr. Carter G. Woodson as the father of Black history. But in 1926, Carter was alone with his new idea. He wanted to blaze a trail. He had to spread the word at a time when there were no computers or internet or televisions. So Carter sent pamphlets about Negro History Week out to schools, colleges, churches, and women's clubs. And of course, he sent notices to newspapers.
Carter was Google.
Yes, you're right about that.
The boy who began by reading the newspaper to others transformed the way people thought about history. He fought for a history based on truth, a history that includes all people. Carter G. Woodson didn't study history, he changed it, and we can too. So quickly, I'll go over the author's note. And the illustrator is actually a Facebook friend of mine. Perhaps we can get him up here one day to read that himself. But the author's note says, the teaching of the whole truth will help us in the direction of real democracy. Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Carter G. Woodson worked throughout his life to fight against the idea that African Americans had no history. He conducted groundbreaking research and built a movement to honor and recognize African American contributions to history that is still alive and vibrant. The organization he founded in 1915 thrives today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. In 1976, his home and office headquarters in Washington, D.C. was designated a historic landmark. And I'm going to leave that right there. You guys get the book, and you can go through here and read more from the author note and the illustrator's note. And let's talk about this wonderful illustration that's in this book. This is an excellent read to our children. This is an excellent family read. If you guys have been paying attention, the story is great, it's palatable, it's informative, and all of these are for us to read with our children and then add to it, to do further research on it. So we see that Dr. Woodson had an undeniable and unquenchable thirst to learn. He was told by a professor that, and Brother Abdul saying he is a member of Omega Psi Fraternity Inc. Okay. And so, yeah, an unquenchable thirst to learn, and he was determined to make sure that the world knew about Black history. And, you know, I've heard people say things about we don't have a history, we don't have a culture, and he spent his life refuting that. And, you know, I think it's extremely important that we understand the value of knowing our history and culture. And also, you know, there are some quotes by Dr. Carter G. Woodson that, you know, here's his book, The Miseducation of the Negro. And if you have not read this, then you as an adult, you definitely want to make sure that you add that to your list of books that you have read. I actually had some quotes by Dr. Woodson that I wanted to, you know, share. A lot of these are out of the book. He said, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one out for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. So, you know,
One of my favorites now.
And we see this play out. We see this mentality play out today. I'm gonna run a few other quotes by him. You know, he said, If the Negro in the ghetto must eternally be fed by the hand that pushes him into the ghetto, he will never become strong enough to get out of the ghetto. Those, and that's Dr. Carter G. Woodson, those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history. And yeah. So those are a few quotes by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. You definitely want to research him and learn more about this Black man. Again, all that he did was spreading this information. There was no Google, to our young viewers, there was no internet. He could not email this. He could not do a blast on social media. He was not able to send out text messages to a lot of people en masse. This was typing things up. This was networking. This was moving around. This was peck on the typewriter with a sense of diligence and duty, understanding how important that it is for a people to be proud of who they are and to tell our own stories and to not look at ourselves through the lens of other people. So to this day, and in this month, especially we talk about this all the time, but this is extremely important. So if you have children, make sure that a part of what they are learning is about their history and their culture, and they understand who they are. They have a strong foundation in that. So, I could run on and on, but Rodney, I know you have some things that you want to add about Dr. Woodson.
I just want to add, a couple of pieces for me as well, since I carried the book, on my Kindle. So there's a chapter where he talks about how folks obsess about leadership and how we need to be about service rather than leadership. So I'm gonna share this piece. If the Negro could abandon the idea of leadership and instead stimulate a larger number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy in doing these things efficiently, the race might accomplish something. The race needs workers, not leaders. Such workers will solve the problem which race leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk more and more about. When you hear a man talking, then always inquire as to what he is doing or what he has done for humanity. Oratory and resolutions do not avail much. If they did, the Negro race would be in a paradise on earth. It may be well to repeat here the saying that old men talk of what they have done, young men of what they are doing, and fools of what they expect to do. The Negro race has a rather large share of the last mentioned class. But if we can finally succeed in translating the idea of leadership into that of service, we may soon find it possible to lift the Negro to a higher level. So there you go.
He's putting it out there. And I mean, these are also reasons why it's important to be, well read and to understand our history, because as we try to forge these paths toward liberation, those of us who have an understanding that liberation is still necessary, because some of us think that, everything is all right. There are still a lot of Black people who think that racism is simply having someone call you a racial epithet, to call you the N-word, or, to be pulled over by the police. And a lot of us are not really understanding systems and systemic racism and what that means and how it affects our lives, how it affects our education, our children's education, how it affects you all the way up into adulthood, how it affects where you live, what you eat, how you feel, your mental state, what you are putting in your body, all of that. So when we have these blueprints, when we are able to listen to these scholars, these activists, all of these people who laid this path before us, they have given us jewels that a lot of times we are overlooking. So it is very important. We don't learn history just to be able to spew facts. We learn history so that it can be a weapon, so that history can be a weapon to help us to push through this liberation journey, okay? So that we are arming ourselves. Sometimes we need to pull out a machete. Sometimes we need to pull out a pen. Sometimes we need to pull out, we might need to put on a raincoat. It just depends on what the terrain is. But knowing our history and utilizing that helps us to take this journey and be well prepared. And also, go ahead, Rodney.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
It is important, the literacy aspect, again, that we come together and read books. There's so much power in that. And we make it palatable. We provide the children's books and then our book recommendations. A lot of times those are books that parents this time around on this season, the book recommendations, half of them are for children and half of them are things that parents tuned in can go and purchase, because the more well-versed you are about it, then if you know about Dr. Carter G. Woodson, then when you read Carter Reads the Newspaper with your child, you can add some things to that. You can add things to that discussion. Let's see here. We have a comment from Miss Portia. She said, focus on service rather than leadership. The trail has been blazed. Continue. She always comes with the summary.
That's right.
She always comes with the wrap up. You be like, all right, well, we can go now. All right, y'all. There it is. But we are here, and we are here for, this is our virtual village family. We are glad to be back here with you all. Glad to have these conversations. These moments in history are extremely important, and check them out. We repost those daily. So you are able to, you'll be able to catch the one that we did tonight, tomorrow. We'll have just that clip out there, and share those. It's bite size, okay? So more people can hear that. And it's coming from our young people. Kalia is delivering that. And you see Peyton brought us the quote from Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And of course, Shania comes through with that powerful affirmation. Please share this if you value this type of programming. Click the share button. Tell somebody who knows somebody. We always talk about, that we aren't seeing things that are positive. I hear those conversations a lot of times. So again, if you see the value in this and you want this type of programming, share it. Tell people. Help us to grow, okay? Because this is a part of your community. You are a member of this virtual village. This is our literacy game. So Rodney, what do you want to share before?
First of all, this is a great book, and so if you want to introduce Carter G. Woodson to children, I'm fascinated. I'll probably read it 3 or 4 more times before the night is out. But there was a portion in here where as I was reading it again, I just his story is unique, but it's not unique. And so the fact that he was reading to his father, the father couldn't read or write, but the child was reading to the father. And I can just think, as we talked about on this virtual village, we've encouraged the parents to get the children to read to them. So these lessons that we have learned that are in our DNA, sometimes it's just nice to be reminded of that and from whence we have come. But I just thought the story was fascinating. There was a portion in there where he said that he convinced himself that he would look a man in the eye and say, I am your equal. I am not inferior. And so I think there's so many lessons there. And even as you talk about cutting that back door for your own benefit, I think sometimes we also have to recognize the successes that we have. So while at the same time, we know we have challenges, but Carter G. Woodson, I believe, would say, you're just trying to cut a door for your own benefit if you are afraid to look another man in the eye and have courage and say, I'm going to move forward and I'm going to lead you. You need to follow me. So if you're out there whining, I used to have this thing called whining while black. If you're out there whining while black, stop cutting your own back door and go ahead and do what Carter G. Woodson has encouraged us to do.
Well, there it is. and to jump back on the story, Dr. Carter G. Woodson was born in 1875. His parents were enslaved, and he died in 1950. My parents were born in the 50s. So, as we really talk about, and as I was reading about his mother, and how his mother was auction block, and she pleaded for them not to sell her mother, so that her siblings would not be without their mother, but it happened anyway. And I said trauma. I just want people to think about that. All of this is connected, and it's not so far away. It's not. So we see the conditions in our community sometimes, because working with children, it's important, even as adults, that we understand history, so that when we look at what's going on now, we understand why now is the way that it is. because a lot of people will look at the conditions and see disparities and think that those disparities just have to do with people's capacity, that it has something to do with people's abilities. But no, again, systems that have been put in place. So think about the connectivity and really put the time in perspective here. My parents were born in the 50s. He passed away in 1950. His parents were enslaved, okay? So let that sink in right now, and don't let anybody make you think that these lessons are not important, and that things that our community struggles through and things that we have triumphed through, that it's old and ancient history. It is not. It's not. And we pick up the reins.
Yeah, but it's also a sign of Puritan brilliance in our DNA. So in that same timeline, if you think about it, so Carter G. Woodson, born when he was born, passed when he was passed. Your parents were born when they were born. You were born, and here you are leading the virtual village. So it is not, we 2, 3, 4 generations removed. So not only are we able to tell the story of what the systems have done, but there's also the story to tell of how we have triumphed and conquered the system over and over and over again. If we find ways of aligning those two things, the world is limitless. And that's what we need to be teaching our children, that's just how powerful and strong we are, and what some literacy can do for you. So I hope everybody's listening out there will go out there and have their children read that newspaper to them and read those books to them, and let them have that same or similar experience that little Carter G. Woodson had, and the doors that will open up for them.
Definitely. We all have a part to play. And also think about that with these people who we view as history makers, who definitely were, perhaps when they were doing that, it may not have been viewed that way. And they did not know that they were going to go down in history that way. So there are a lot of powerful things that are being done right now. And there are a lot of powerful things that we can do. So don't ever, and again, to your point, Rodney, as we read and we learn about people and movements and all of these things, it's a blueprint. It's a blueprint so we can see the things that have been done that did create change, and then we pick up the mantle. And so all of that mess about we are not our ancestors, then the people who say that are not well read, and they are not they are not a part of the literacy game yet. But if you happen to hear somebody, then bring them in. Be like, oh, that's how you feel. Okay, that's how you feel. I got something for you. What you doing Monday through Wednesday at 7 p.m. Okay, and just bring them on in here so we can get them in the right frame of mind. But with that said, I got my partner back tonight. This is our first evening back on season 4, and it's been great. We appreciate you all for tuning in with us. Thank you to Dr. Vaughan for coming and sharing his book. It's been that was wonderful, all that he is doing. Also, again, to our young people for the segments that they do for the show. And, we just value our literacy. Hey, I hope you know and feel that you are a part of this. We can't do this without you. This is a family. This is a community. This is a bond that we have all built, and it is unbreakable. And we are happy to be back. So you guys, again, make sure you click that share button. Tell somebody who knows somebody. And don't forget to visit clevercommunities.org if you want to learn more about Clever Communities in Action and what we have been doing, what we are doing now. And if you would like to support us, you can go again to clevercommunities.org. So you all have a wonderful evening. Rodney, go ahead and take us out.
Hey, I just want to say it's great to be back. Good seeing you again. I think I probably closed it out already, but I just wanted to say, since we were talking about Carter G. Woodson, the theme for Black History Month this year is the Black family: representation, identity, and diversity. So that's who we are. We're going to celebrate it all throughout the month of February. Glad to be back with you, Starr, and the Literacy Gang, and look forward to a successful program tomorrow night.
All right. The teachers will be back tomorrow night, so make sure y'all tune in for that literacy lesson. We're out, y'all. Literacy Gang, gang, gang. Peace.
We in our own lane and we got our own slang. different. We're the literacy gang. Your brain is a muscle, must keep it trained. We flex different. We're the literacy